Hi, everybody. We're live once again from Studio B here at the Beach Street Yacht Club in San Francisco's beautiful Marina District with my co-host and Commodore of the Beach Street Yacht Clubs and a member of St. Francis, Julia Vadekind. I'm your host, Tom Eamon. We've got a really big shoe for you today.
Yes.
Great show. It's going to go on for a while, so buckle up, everybody. We've got Charlie Enright standing patiently by in Bristol, Rhode Island at the U.S. Sailing HQ. And we've got some regatta reports from the weekend and much more. So thank you for joining us. The chat is filling in already with people from around the world, including Mark Holland, who was the first one on a beautiful day in Boston, just up north of Charlie. Hello, Fozy everywhere. The Ministry of Sailing, that is Captain Jack, John Schaefer, he's also in Rhode Island. Greg Phillips on the Gold Coast of Oz. Gordon Smith in Denmark. Alan Long in Ohio. Back to finally warm Ohio. Peter Taylor, New York City. They're all looking forward to the Sail GP in New York City. In fact, Charlie's going there, he tells us as well. Mark Holland is saying hi to Charlie. Chris Exley, hello from Salem, Mass, up also north of Boston. Larry Kennedy, we got you in the show today, Larry. The Senator. Please tell Charlie the Senator said hello, Larry Kennedy. Dogzilla Monster is Stingray up in Seattle on a gorgeous afternoon in Washington State. Yeah, Rick Bannerow, we're going to check in with Rick Ola from Getting Warmer and Warmer, Connecticut. He's on the mend. Glad to hear you're doing better. Rick, happy Tuesday, everybody. This is our show number. Let's just move into it. Our show number 839.
Good heavens.
Huh?
Good heavens.
Where are we going to stop? 900?
We'll think about it.
We'll think about it. I don't know what. Today's show, happy Tuesday and happy World Velocipede Day. You know what a velocipede is, Julia? He went to Stanford. Charlie went to Brown. He probably knows.
Charlie knows.
You know? So is it a cousin of the centipede? No, it's not.
It's a cousin of the bicycle, isn't it?
It is. Well done.
Oh, yeah.
Fozy Focus, the Yachties are Hotties, Bimbo Larry Kennedy, another Rick Bannerow cover, and the Parkin family. Going to celebrate all of them. Our Fozy, Friends of Sailing Illustrated from around the planet. Coaching Corner, Jon Emmett. He's, of course, has won both Masters regattas that he sailed in the Benelux countries.
Did he really?
Yeah, he won both, Julia, and he's back home on the family farm after his two Masters wins. With an AC-38 Cup date, there's a new draft protocol that's been circulated. So we'll talk a little bit about what's going on, including Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, who are back on the water sailing down there in southern Sardinia, the only AC team publicly up and running. We'll soon see about others. Bravo Zulu to the Corinthian Yacht Club. All of you up in the Boston Marblehead area, they won the Team Racing Worlds at Harbor Court, New York Yacht Club in Newport over the weekend. And Bravo Zulu to Pauline Courtois from France and her team that won the women's match racing tour event here. Yeah. That should be WWMRT. Okay, talk that graphics department, Julia. Huh?
Call him.
That graphics department behind the doors there in the control room. The NACRA 49er and FX Europeans are underway in Greece, and the Sail GP this weekend they're in the chips, literally, ahead of this weekend's Mubadala New York Sail GP. We'll give you a preview of that. Not a big one. We'll save that for Friday. And finally, in the last leg, we have a fabulous video. It's from Icarus Sports, another of their great videos on the Trofeo Optimist Italia 2025, also taking place in Sardinia. So that's our show today, including this day in history. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, our fantastic Fozy, and more. But it's our main feature today is, and we're delighted to have guest Charlie Enright, champion racing sailor. He is the U.S. Sailing's new CEO. We'll get to him in a moment. So, Julia, this truly is the show that is news, views, and notables from the yacht racing world. Somebody told me, though, that we're less that and we're more the People magazine of sailing. And you know what? I think it's true. We are, and that's what we're about. And I'm happy to be about people in our beloved sport.
Absolutely.
Cool people. Larry Kennedy, am I going to be allowed back on the water? Rick Banner, they're debating the difference between a velocipede and a velociraptor. No, we're not going to have any rides in what was that? What was that movie called, Julia? Pedro, we're going to have Pedro Foiling Sailor, a.k.a. Peter Foiling Sailor, Peter Stevenson. We got a little tidbit with him. But to start the show, just one quick note. None of you needs to send another video or story or anything else on Mount Vesuvius, which, of course, is a Somma stratovolcano located in Italy on the Gulf of Naples, known for its historical eruptions, particularly the one that destroyed Pompeii. Do you know how to pronounce that next town?
Herculaneum.
Herculaneum. Herculaneum in 79 current era, 79 AD. It is considered one of the most dangerous volcanoes in the world and is actively monitored due to its potential for future eruptions. We don't need any more info on that. Yeah, the America's Cup looks like it's going to be there in 2027 or maybe 28 or 29, but let's call it 2027, which is what the announced date is so far. Mm-hmm. And there's some other active volcano areas right near the racing area and the bases, the places allocated. But I have an expert. We call him Amadeus because of his haircut, but you've heard him mentioned many times on the show, our Fozy Lance Burke from St. Francis Yacht Club. There he is aboard Mayan, that fabulous Alden yacht. That is, we'll come to that in a moment. But he says on his LinkedIn page, he says, move complex technology out of the lab and into the field, return real-world experience back to the lab, lather, rinse, and repeat, which rather sounds like an America's Cup team or around the world team that Charlie, of course, won.
Yeah.
The ocean race. But the Lance is our volcano expert. He is a scientist of considerable repute, and he's a little volcanic himself. And he's going to keep us posted. There he is on the yacht, along with a lot of others on Mayan, which has been owned here by our past Commodore of St. Francis Yacht Club. 2 or 3 times removed now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2.
Bo Froelich, how long ago was he Commodore? Couple 3 years ago. But this boat is a fabulous boat, and it was also, Julia, owned by Crosby, Stills, Nash.
Yeah.
Which of those 3?
Crosby.
David Crosby. Well done. And
he was a neighbor of mine growing up.
In Carpinteria.
Yes.
You didn't mess around with him, did you?
His older brother.
Oh dear. I thought that was the guy that wrote Take 5. I thought that was the older brother of some of the others.
No.
Oh, my goodness, Joe, you do get around. Mayan, speaking, getting around the Alden 59 schooner. It's for sale, by the way. Commodore Froelich has it up for sale. And David Crosby, of course, owned it and was able to sail on it right up until he passed away not too long ago. Yep, everybody's got that in there. A volcanologist, Clark Chapin, well said. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I don't need to hear any more about volcanoes, but I also don't need to hear any more about driverless cars. Waymo is teaching its robotaxis here in San Francisco to drive more like humans. Here's what that means. Waymo's robotaxis, known for sometimes rote behavior associated with machine learning, have become more naturalistic and confident. Some are even honking. Honking at other drivers, Julia.
I didn't know that.
Well, we see them, and we've been seeing them for, I guess, over a year, maybe a couple of years now, all over the place. They are, I've not downloaded the app. I got to download the app. I've been an Uber loyalist since Uber came out 10 plus years ago.
Right.
But I'm going to download the app and start, because every time somebody comes to San Francisco, James Pleasance and the others that were here this past weekend are so impressed by the driverless cars. Oh, we've never seen those. We've heard about them, but they're all over the place.
They are.
They are all over the place, Julia.
Yep.
Okay, so we don't need to hear any more about those. Thank you. We appreciate everything that you all send to us, but I don't need to hear any more about those too. Julia, what are we celebrating today?
It depends if velocipedes or the bicycles or not.
Well, it is World Bicycle Day. The bicycle is one of the most beautiful, beneficial inventions for your personal health and for the health of the environment. Get out and get some sustainable exercise. not very useful here in the Bay Area because of the hilliness of the locale, although right here in the marina they're useful.
Yeah.
You should have a bicycle, Julia.
Good luck.
You should have a bicycle.
Not for a long time.
Because it's one of the most important inventions in the history of the planet. It provides millions of people with a means of transport powered by nothing other than their bodies. It's practicable. Practical. I guess it's practicable too.
Yeah.
Reliable and helps one to stay fit. Many find that it's a fun, hassle-free way to get around and take care of daily tasks. So we're celebrating that today. Julia, we're also celebrating our FOSI, or many of
Always.
those of you who give us $1 or $2 or more per month. This is viewer-supported media, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. We thank you all very much for your support, and without your support, we would not have a studio.
At all.
We wouldn't have all of our streaming fees that we have to pay for. We wouldn't have the equipment and more. And we appreciate very much your support of us via Patreon or otherwise.
Right.
Julia, this is a quick FOSI focus.
Okay.
Speaking of cyclists, we have some famous cyclists who are FOSI in this show. You know who? Cool people, friends of Sailing Illustrated, including Peter Stevenson, a.k.a. Pedro, foiling sailor,
Right.
who's shown here with Warwick Foy. They are often out riding during the show because, of course, it is now Wednesday morning in Sydney at 06:11 in the morning. 08:11 in Auckland. Big cyclists, Yachties or Hotties, which is a group and a shirt sponsored by Ron Stan and invented by, of course, our Mr. President, once removed of Australian sailing, Alistair Murray. Here is Alistair in France with some of his mates, including FOSI Malcolm Page, who was our Olympic director here at U.S. Sailing a couple 3-4 years ago by now, and an Olympic medalist twice, I think a 2-time Olympic medalist for Australia. And they're all yachties and they're all cyclists. Here are 2 more gold medalists from Australia, Tom Burton and Will Ryan. Cycling is a big deal in that country and among sailors worldwide, including, I know, the big fella, Ian Murray, dear longtime friend of mine, is a big cyclist as well. Finally, we've got Alistair Murray with his bride, with Tracy, his wife, Mr. President, President Emeritus of Australian Sailing and Cyclists all. Flipping the page here for a moment. I don't know if Larry Kennedy is also a cyclist, but he is a bimbo, the Brotherhood of International Mark Boat Operators. Larry Kennedy at Oak Cliff last weekend, where they had a major event. Peter Taylor sent that photo in. He was out on the boat with Larry, and Peter said, I joined our favorite bimbo this weekend. Always a pleasure. As you may know, his daughter, I didn't know this, but I talked to Colin. If you're watching, Larry, still, I saw you in the chat, but I talked to Colin earlier today. He's down in SoCal, having sailed the SoCal 300. His son, Colin Kennedy, a terrific guy, member of our Gulf Cup TV team. But his sister and Larry's daughter is getting married next weekend in Mystic. And he's very pleased, needless to say. Bravo Zulu, congratulations. Speaking of Oak Cliff, this past weekend where those photos were taken, that is Freddie Parkin steering with his dad, Barry Parkin, and that's Thomas Whidden, who is the son of the even more famous Tom Whidden, Tom and Betsy Whidden's son, Thomas Whidden. They were sailing in a qualifier for a match racing event at Oak Cliff last weekend. And Peter Taylor said the grade 3 at Oak Cliff was a qualifier for the WMRT Triple Crown, Oak Cliff International, the Sewanaka Corinthian Thompson Cup, and Chicago's match racing event. Keep your eye on Freddie Parkin there on the left, who swept the event. Skippering swept the event. His brother Jack, who's not pictured, but I know well from Gulf Cup, and I also spoke with him this morning, was tactician. And his father there in the middle, Barry, and I didn't know this, was a 1996 Olympian in the Soling for Great Britain, also 2000. He was trimming this past weekend. He has the potential, that is, Freddie Parkin, to hit the West Coast events, meaning Con Cup and beyond, and maybe be a real star in match racing going forward. That photo by Peter Taylor. Thank you, Peter. And there, I dug this up online today. That is Barry Parkin on the left. He's trimming there in the middle on the picture on the right. He's a Brit. This is the dad, and he sailed for GBR in the Olympics in the sailing class 96 and 2000. And I didn't know it until I put this all together today with the help of a couple of these FOSI, including Jack Parkin.
Uh-huh.
I umpired.
Did you?
I umpired the 92 and 96 Olympics. I was the American member of the jury there and had the pleasure of umpiring that British team. They finished fourth in the Olympics in 96, not quite so good a finish in 2000. There's the entire team that sailed this weekend and won. Apparently, they were awesome, tough. Thomas Whidden.
I can airdrop it like it's hot.
Uh-oh. That was Siri talking to us. Thomas Whidden on the left, Barry Parkin, the dad, there second from the left. Jack Parkin calling tactics. There's Harrison Gandy, whom I don't know. Freddie Parkin, second from the right. And Christian Yanati, who did the bow. They were superb. Keep track of them because they're going in. And we already know Jack Parkin from the Gulf Cup. And he went to Stanford, Julia.
Can't be all bad.
He can't be all bad. He's a hell of a good sailor. And they are going to be a force to be reckoned with in match racing, not only in this country, but beyond. Here's another of our favorite FOSI, Julia. Rick Bannero, with whom I spoke this morning as well. He's recovering from whatever croup he had, he had a bit of a cold and then some. Of course, he is from Stamford, not to be confused with Stanford.
Which always is.
Connecticut. And his outfit, ontheflyphoto.net, he has been featured on this show a number of times and is a terrific guy and has another cover.
Great.
He's now had 33 covers of the Northeastern magazine called Wind Check, a superb publication. Rick's had 33 covers, 16 of the last 17. Bravo Zulu. Let's see if he gets July or not. Speaking of FOSI, coming on the show this Friday, live from Tampa, Florida, our show number 840 on Friday, is this gentleman. Do you remember him, Julia?
Yes, indeed.
William. Chip, exactly. Chip Merlin, who is a leading lawyer. You never know when you're going to see him on television somewhere.
Yeah.
Fox News, CNN, here, there, and everywhere. He's a leading lawyer who's also a bit of a media personality, a super sailor, and of course he bought Merlin in part because his last name is Merlin, and he's racing Merlin to impressive heights. The 68-foot sled, of course, designed by Fast as Fun Bill Lee, and Bill owned it, bought it back for a while, and he's going to talk. Interestingly, he sailed in the SoCal 300, that race from your hometown or near your hometown of Santa Barbara. Down to San Diego. And without going into the details, it was light. The predictions were for big high-pressure system to park there, light. And everybody in the race was saying, please, shorten the course. Just run us right down the coast, have a coastal race. Don't go out into the ocean X many miles and out around the islands. Well, the race committee said, this is our Mount Everest. We're going to do this anyway. The race took forever. These guys went around the track at 2, 3, 4 knots and were not amused.
No.
So there's going to be a little talk about that. And he has some great ideas. I've been talking with him during and after the race. Chip Merlin has some great ideas on how to improve our beloved sport, how to make it more customer or client friendly. So he will be our guest this Friday.
Oh, good.
Speaking of guests, we have Charlie Enright with us. He is, I said, standing by politely and patiently in Bristol, Rhode Island. He's a very busy boy because he's just in the last month become the CEO of U.S. Sailing. Finally, a sailing CEO, not only a sailor, but a superb sailor. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tom, thanks for having me.
How's your first month been?
Good. I've been learning a lot, quickly, that's for sure. I've been using the fire hose analogy. Feels like I'm drinking from one. But it's been good. I knew a little bit about U.S. Sailing as an end user of some of their products and a member of the kind of greater sailing community. But it's been good to get a look under the hood and kind of see how it all works and take a closer look at all the good work that the people in this building and elsewhere, as the case may be, do for the association.
Well, as you know, I had that job 45 years ago.
Good heavens.
46 years ago, in 1979. And a lot's changed since then, but also a lot is still the same. And we'll talk about that. But let's first, by way of introduction, run a video from your esteemed alma mater from Brown University, where you have just recently been inducted into the Brown University Athletic Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Introduced to sailing by his grandfather, a Brown alum, the trip from Bristol, Rhode Island to College Hill was a short one for Charlie Enright. At Brown, Charlie joined the sailing team and also met his future wife, Maris. A four-time member of the college sailing All-American team, Enright was also a three-time All-New England co-ed skipper and captain of the Bears. One of only 7 college sailors selected as a British University Sailing Association team member in 2005, he was part of an ICSA All-Star team that is selected every 4 years to represent college sailing in the United Kingdom over the summer. After graduation, Charlie parlayed his passion for sailing into even greater things. A 2-time winner of the Rolex Transatlantic and Fastnet races, his greatest accomplishment came only last year. That's when he skippered his 11th hour racing team to victory in the Ocean Race, a 6-month race around the world that started in Spain and ended in Italy, which many describe as the longest and toughest sporting event in the world. Not only was this victory the firstborn American entry, but he and his crew were voted the Rolex World Sailing Team of the Year. Charlie was also voted U.S. Sailing's 2023 Rolex Yachtsman of the Year, causing Brown sailing coach John Mollicone to proclaim, quote, "Charlie is now the top dog in the world." Tonight, we honor Charlie Enright, who sails into the Brown Athletic Hall of Fame.
So, Charlie, that was what, in October last year, October of 2024, when you were inducted into the Brown University Athletic Hall of Fame. Bravo, Zulu. But every time we see that incident that happened during the Ocean Race, when you got port tacked, what was going through your mind when that happened?
Well, I mean, looking at it now on video, which I've done many times, since the event occurred, I think it's stating the obvious, but lucky to just be here. It was a difficult situation, for everybody on the boat, but certainly for everyone on the team that put, blood, sweat, and tears into this effort. And, that race is a roller coaster ride, and some of the ups and downs you see coming, but certainly we didn't see that coming. But, it's how you respond to it. And obviously our team did a tremendous job with that. And, pleased with the eventual result, obviously. But, just a difficult thing to have gone through, certainly. But I just think it speaks to the strength of, the team we had, top to bottom. And
well, you could have been hurt badly if the bow had not stopped on the gunnel of your boat and the bowsprit. I mean, you obviously saw them coming from some time away. We were impressed by you ducking up. We've run that clip, I don't know how many times, but not since the time it happened, but we ran it on the shows before or during, and I guess probably the show after. But bloody hell, you could have been hurt badly. And Dawn Riley's in the chat. John's very proud of you. I guess you spent some time at Oak Cliff, didn't you?
Yep, certainly did.
And she's very proud of you. And she said, why did they use that clip? Well, it makes sailing look exciting and maybe a little dangerous.
Yeah.
Sure does.
Okay, well, Gordon Smith, now U.S. Sailing has got Charlie. They need to support him long term. Totally agree. We're all going to get behind you. I think everybody is behind you since they heard the announcement. Steve Gruber, who you must know, so I like Charlie. Yeah. He's one of the few people on the planet that makes me look not quite so hairy. Oh, my goodness. Blake Middleton's on here as well. And Blake up in Minnesota, he's saying it's scary to think that he was there at USYRU and I was the executive director / CEO. But that does go back a ways, Charlie. Let's go look at U.S. Sailing and what has transpired in the meantime. The new president, who I've also known for 50 years, a hell of a good sailor named Henry Brower, and I was on the jury at age, 20, when he was there sailing in the Sears Cup at Menor Harbor Yacht Club, I think, back in God knows when, the early 70s. Henry is now president of U.S. Sailing, and he gave a talk down at the Sailing Leadership Forum San Diego in February. He said 3 important priorities that required immediate attention. 1, hire a new sailing CEO. 2nd, focus on our high performance and Olympic program and support our high performance director, Marcus Lynch, the Brit who came via Germany and is working now for Charlie. And 3rd, update current technology, specifically member database, better service, retention, and acquisition. Okay, well, he can check off the CEO. We not only have a sailing CEO, but he's a superb sailor. Bravo Zulu to Henry and the rest of the gang. And he, in his speech, I was down there for just a day for the dinner, but I didn't stay for his speech. But he said, I've read a transcript, so whether you are a cruising sailor, a high-performance sailor, someone who enjoys a comfortable day sail, a member of a yacht club or your local community sailing organization, we need to make a viable case why you should support your national governing body. There is no reason why we can't build our membership to 80 to 100,000 members. That was, again, at the SLF in San Diego in February, President Henry Brower. Comments? Not all that.
Yeah, well, I think I satisfied the checking of the first box. I think there's a lot of work to do, certainly on the next 2. But I've engaged in that, quite readily, upon arrival. And there's a lot to talk about, I'd say, with each of those 2 bullet points. So wherever you want to start, I'm good to go.
Well, let's start on budget, because we talked about it on this show, and the fact that the U.S. Sailing lost a lot of money both in 2023 and apparently in 2024. I haven't seen the 2024 accounts yet, but we know that there was a substantial loss in 2023. And President Brower, Henry tells me, in fact, he told me down in San Diego that night at the Rolex dinner, that he said, we have a balanced budget for 2025. We will not ever have another huge loss like we did in 2023, 2024. So how does the budget look? What are the finances like? What are you doing? That must be involving a lot of your time and effort.
Yeah, I think the budget's actually in a pretty good place. I think prior to my arrival, the board was the de facto CEO and, made some difficult decisions to kind of right size the organization. And, that is reflected in the budget. I think the association's in a good spot. And I think, with the Olympic side of things, I think, we'll be able to provide as much resource to the athletes as we have in the coffers. And that's like an ever-changing situation. I think the more money we can go out and raise in the Olympic space, the more resource we have, to support the athletes. But, we're also not in the business of spending money we don't have. So, as the process unfolds, we'll have a better picture of kind of what that looks like.
Well, it's always an issue. I don't think there's any way you'll get to 80 to 100,000 members. And I hope that the president, that Henry and you, don't make that a huge priority. I'd rather see U.S. Sailing, and this is what I did. Again, things have changed a lot since then, but in many ways they're the same. I focused on providing a great service to the members, whether it's small boat or big boat. The offshore office is important because there's a lot of money that is there generated by members who are affluent. You've got, in terms of sheer numbers in the One Design area, you got a lot of people who want to support the organization, but they'd rather give money to their class association, have their class association pay dues to the national. I hope membership does not become the be-all and end-all. I hope it is service for the members and the clients. And then the Olympics, which we have to do, and we need to do a good job of it, as you know, is really such a small little increment of the whole deal, but arguably the highest, the most visible increment of what's going on. How do you reconcile those two things?
Yeah, I think you led with membership. The membership's currently at 35,000, in a country of 330 million. And there's estimated to be somewhere around 4 million sailors. You look at, the RYA in the UK, that's a country of 65 million people, and they do have over 100,000 members. But I think membership growth only occurs when you're providing value to the members that you have, and you make a good case for membership. I think, the exercise that we've been going through here, or the thought exercise that I've kind of been putting everybody through is, if U.S. sailing ceased to exist tomorrow, like what would people functionally miss? And I think that's a way of reverse engineering our value proposition to our membership, kind of zeroing in on our core competencies and what we do well, and making sure that every decision we make is in the best, interest of the people that are currently supporting us. And I think if we set a reasonable expectation and deliver on that, the membership will certainly grow organically.
Julia, you may not know, you won't know this probably, Charlie, but Julia was in one of her 3 or 4 major careers. She was the head of one of the key people in an association based in Washington, D.C., called, Julia, the National Center
for Voluntary Action.
So one of the things we've said on this show, and both Julia and I have a bit of a focus of nonprofits and volunteers, but it used to be in my time, and John Bonds and some of the others who were good executive director, CEO, the staff supported a huge volunteer crowd, and it was really run by volunteers. There were committee chairs that ran the championships. There were committee chairs that ran offshore rules, and then the staff supported. The staff got behind that. And in recent years, the non-sailing CEO tried to make it more like the NHL or the NFL or the NBA or tell me who, and have a core staff that ran the whole damn thing, and sort of push the volunteers aside, is this sense I get. What's your feeling about all that?
Yeah, I mean, there are a ton of committees, certainly, some of which are contributing on a daily basis, some of which are pretty dormant. That's I'd say a medium-term project for me and for the association to kind of hone in on, the role of the committees and try to figure out which ones are active, which ones are adding value, which ones need to be rethought and revisited. But they're made up of people who care and have the ability to help a great deal. So to the extent people are willing to help, we should be able to facilitate that. But also you don't just have to have committees either. So I think a review of the process is on the docket, and we'll kind of see where it lands.
I liked what I saw you were quoted in one of the interviews you did, and you said it was the same attitude I took when I got there. Of course, I was young. I was only 24 or something, 24, about to turn 25. So I was really very careful, and I got the help of a lot of senior serious people who were in their 50s, 60s, 70s even. And they pat me on the head and kick me in the butt a little bit, but I had tremendous amount of support from the volunteer side because of probably just my age. You're going to have a lot of support because of and I was a good sailor, but I wasn't world class as you are. And I hadn't had the success that you have had. So I think you're going to get a lot of support, but I liked your attitude, Charlie, when you said in one of the interviews, I'm going to get there and not change much. In fact, very little, except maybe the website. I heard you say that. Great news. I'm not going to change a lot until I get a chance to look around, as you said a minute ago, under the hood and get a feel for what's good, what's not so good, and the good, bad, and the ugly. Good approach, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I was very conscious to come in with no preconceived notions, no assumptions, but really try to meet the people. That was, first and foremost for me, because I think no matter what you're doing, whether it's sailing around the world or running an organization like U.S. Sailing, it's all about the people that you surround yourself with. So I think getting to know the people, getting a feel for how the organization works, figure out what's going well, what's not going well. And then from there, start to evaluate, what changes need to be made. And I think as far as the website goes, I don't think it's, worth getting into straight away. That's for sure, because I think we want to kind of get our own house in order a little bit before we start publicly broadcasting to the world. what we got going on here internally. So, I'd put that along with the committee membership in the kind of medium term list of priorities.
Well, just make it more readable. Those of us who are getting old, can't, our eyesight starts to be not as good as it was when we were 25. The light font and the light, but that's a minor detail. Here's a serious question from Clark Chapin, who you may know has been a volunteer, a senior serious guy in U.S. sailing for as long as I've known him, which is almost all my life. The guy's been involved, president of his class, former president of the Interlake Class Association, keen racing sailor. Can Charlie comment, Clark, and by the way, a super Fozy here and helped us get this off the ground 10 years ago. That is Sailing Illustrated. Can Charlie comment on the relationship between USOPC, which we used to call U.S. Olympic Committee, it's now the U.S. Olympic and Para Committee, and U.S. Sailing, and how their audit requirements impact the structure of our organization without getting into the nuts and bolts of that? How's the relationship with our National Olympic Committee?
Yeah, I think and I feel, that U.S. Sailing has a very strong relationship with the USOPC. There's a lot that goes into that, certainly, as I think a lot of the viewers are aware. As a national governing body, we are beholden to the Ted Stevens Act, which says, it is our job to develop sailing here in the United States and put a Olympic, Paralympic, and Pan American team on the water. So, we do a lot with the USOPC. I have done one of my 8 onboarding calls with the USOPC so far, but I was on a separate USOPC call yesterday about elite athlete health insurance. So I mean, just there's 2 people in our office that are dedicated directly to liaising with the USOPC. They have a lot of resource certainly to offer, but it takes a lot to get that accessible to the athletes. It's not something that just falls out of the sky. So that is a job, certainly, to make sure not only that we're compliant, but that we're optimizing the resource that they have available to our teams.
Well, that'll be one of the challenges. How about the relationship with America One Racing, with CARE? Have you talked to Paul, New York Yacht Club, who's been a big proponent, supporter of our Olympic program, St. Francis Yacht Club, Lauderdale Yacht Club, Texas Corinthian? How's the relationship with particularly America One Racing? Do you see it now and going forward?
Yeah, I reached out to a lot of people before taking this position. Because I wanted to get a real feel, I guess, for what I was getting into. And also in the event that I took the position, it was part of the diligence process, but in the event that I took the position, I also wanted to kind of reach out to everybody as a candidate and not someone who was, jammed down their throat, if you will. And, I had a lot of constructive conversations prior to even taking the position, and I felt a lot of support then, and I feel a lot of support now that I'm sitting in the seat. And we have conversations ongoing with all of the Olympic stakeholders, and they seem to be progressing well. I mean, it's everybody wants the same thing at the end of the day, and obviously a little bit of a rocky past, but I think by and large everybody recognizes that we are where we are, and we have to kind of move forward from here. Everyone wants to see high performance on the water. Everybody has the athlete's best interest at heart. It's just a matter of kind of getting everybody to work together and creating efficiencies with the resources that we do have. And I feel like we're actually on a good path. I really do feel that with the conversations that I've had to date, and look forward to kind of turning that into good results on the water.
Julia.
In some sense, we always sort of take for granted the social part of volunteering. But I think it is important to remember that everybody has to have fun doing it and have a real job to do and have fun doing it. And look at that funny person I learned from, and heard that from so-and-so, and guess who I talked to today? I mean, that whole really interpersonal relationship at all levels of volunteering.
Yeah, race committee or U.S. sailing or at the local level.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, from my standpoint, nobody has to go sailing, so it might as well be fun.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Really,
Right.
really good point.
Right.
Okay. Let's move on to a couple of other topics. And again, we're watching in the chat. Anybody, Jon Emmett says a blank sheet of paper. Ed Worley is saying focus on needs and this is what I was saying a minute ago, but I think Ed said it more eloquently. Focus on needs and requirements of U.S. sailors, clubs and class associations, and the new natural structure of the organization will grow to match. I think we all can agree and support that concept. Ed Worley, thank you for that. Charlie's
I think it is worth noting that we're in the process of updating the organization's strategic plan. And I think to do that, we need to reach out not only to the membership, but the entire sailing community, the people who we hope to be members in the future, and really get some data points, and try to figure out what the people want and how we can help and how we can provide value. And that's something that we look to do during the Northern Hemisphere high season here in July, and then our whole group is going to get together in August, and it's something that we would like to deliver to the board in November. So,
well, one of the things that I haven't had the chance to say this to you, but I've talked to President Brower and a few others, and as Clark Chapin knows, one of my perception of what the greatest benefit of U.S. sailing was back in the day, and I'm not just talking about my era, but in the the decade after that, or two maybe. But U.S. sailing had two big meetings a year. It had a spring meeting in Chicago or Dallas, the middle of the country, and then it had an annual meeting that moved around, hosted by a yacht club in a big sailing area, or maybe not even such a big sailing area. One of our best annual meetings was in Oklahoma City at the Oklahoma City. It was in town in a hotel, but we went out to Oklahoma City Boat Club to have we did some racing during the annual meeting in those days. But one of the great values of U.S. sailing was those two meetings a year where everybody came together. And I'm talking, as you just mentioned, the senior serious sailors, people like Buddy Melgus, Ted Turner, the offshore guys, Dennis Conner, they were there because they were making policy. They were on those committees that were making policy. And you'd go stand in the back like Clark Chapin did, stand in the back of the room and then say something smart, and suddenly you were on a committee. Because they were always, the chairs were chairman, chairwoman were always reaching for cool people and getting them involved in committees. So you'd go to the meeting, and you'd have this big exchange of information between clubs, classes, yacht racing associations, now called CSAs, and then people would go, well, they say, well, that'll work on San Francisco Bay where it's windy, but it won't work on our little pond in Michigan where it's light and flat. Or that'll work down on the Gulf Coast, but that won't work so well up in Scow Country. But you'd go home and try it. And you'd say, this is what these croutons are saying in Florida. But that may make some sense. Let's try that. So you'd go home and try it. And then 6 months later, that same big group, not only the committees and the committee members, but then the senior serious sailors would show up and have another go. And they'd say, well, that worked pretty well. That didn't work so well. Hey, have you tried this? And there was this big exchange of best practices, of information, of what worked there but doesn't work here and why. And then you'd belly up to the bar afterwards. As Julia said, as you said, the social aspect of this is super important. And you might be talking, you'd be there and you'd be talking with Dennis Conner at the bar, Buddy Melgus at the bar. And that's what made the U.S. sailing meetings, I think, really productive and great.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we're just coming off the back of the Sailing Leadership Forum in San Diego. We're putting together plans to do a bit of a regional roadshow with some of the RSAs, the regional sailing associations, next winter. Details kind of forthcoming. And then as it relates to the strategic plan, I think, we'll put together a task force of people on the professional staff and a couple members of the board. But I think also getting an external panel of advisors from different parts of the country, different parts of the sport, and trying to involve some of those, what did you call them, senior sailors, something or others?
Senior serious sailors.
Senior serious
Senior
sailors.
serious sailors.
To make sure that they have the opportunity to have input and make sure we're not missing anything and kind of help us make sure we're headed in the right direction. So I think you can be echo chambers if it's just the same people talking about the same stuff. So I think making sure that we're reaching out to a diverse member, a diverse number of our constituents is important for the strategic planning process.
And real jobs, real volunteer jobs.
Yeah, well, that's right. Give the volunteers responsibility and authority for what they're doing.
You're here because you know about this. And we need to know about this.
Indeed. And if you're just joining us, we're about 45 minutes into today's show. We do this every Tuesday and Friday here for 839 shows this is. And thank you very much for joining us. We have with us from the U.S. Sailing headquarters in Bristol, Rhode Island, the newly installed CEO, Charlie Enright, and we're delighted to have him on. The chat is open. A lot of comments coming in. Fritz Mueller down in Miami saying U.S. Sailing clearly has to address the needs of sailors, but also needs to view itself as a brand that can reach out to expand opportunities from outside the community, promote the sport, and generate revenues. Okay, Fritz, you want to comment on that, Charlie?
Say again? Revenue from outside the sport?
Yeah, create a brand and then generate revenue from, promote the sport and generate revenues from outside the community.
Yeah, I think, we have a number of strong, partners, some of which are traditional kind of yachting sponsors, if you will, Rolex being certainly a big one of those. Risk Strategies as well, who's been traditional sailing sponsor in the past, and we very much appreciate their support. But we have other partnerships as well, from brands that are kind of outside the sailing space and see our demo as one that they kind of want to get involved in. So partnerships, along with development, increase in membership. I mean, those are our, bread and butter. Those are our main sources of revenue, and they need to be expanded upon and catered to, and certainly need to explore, outside the box opportunities as well.
Cool. Well, when you said demo, you mean demographic, of course, and that our sport is, I think, an attractive demographic. But speaking of demos, as I told you in the tech check, Charlie, we say on this show every time that we're really keen to get parasailing reinstated into the Olympics. And we have decided on here, I hope World Sailing agrees with it, I hope you agree with us, that the best way to do that is to get parasailing reinstated for Brisbane 2032 as a demo, not as in demographics, but as a demonstration event for Brisbane 2032. And hopefully the Paralympic Committee worldwide will see and say that we ought to be reinstated as a regular participant in the Paralympics. We don't see, well, obviously we're not going to be in LA in 2028, and we're not going to be a regular event in 2032, but there is a good chance, particularly if Australians on this show keep putting pressure down there on the Brisbane Organizing Committee to let us back in as a demonstration event and then go from there. Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be a great initiative. Certainly we have a wonderful parasailer in this building, and in Betsy Allison, who was just doing a para clinic out in Sheboygan actually this weekend that she said went very well. We had 10 very engaged attendees coming from different backgrounds, all with valuable takeaways to bring back to their kind of local parasailing communities. But yeah, I think getting back in the games would give parasailing that kind of like the Halo project, kind of the aspirational bit for that community to focus on as they race competitively in their local events. So I think it's a great thing to get behind.
Well, that's what we're doing here on the show. We hope you will as well. Speaking of San Pedro, a couple comments about questions about the Olympic venue in 2028. As you and I also we talked in the pre-show in the tech check. 2028 Olympic venue. The croutonic LA politicians, as you well know, are trying to move the venue. It's been announced as Long Beach, which we say is correct, but there are others still, we hear, trying to move it to San Pedro. And we've encouraged our viewers to ping the World Sailing CEO, David.Graham at sailing.org. And we're still wondering why they have not decided.
Yeah.
Exactly, Julie. Announce it once and for all that San Pedro is, well, they don't have to announce that it's croutonic. We all know that it is. And put the Olympics, well and truly, the Sailing Olympics in 2028 in Long Beach. Do you have any insight for us on all of that?
Not in terms of location, possibly timing. I've heard that it's back with LA 28, and they should be making a decision the middle of this month. So
okay, so the promised May delivery now has been pushed back to June. I don't think I feel like that's bad news for sailing. I think there's some Chinese. We've said this on the show before. There's some Chinese interests serious, both in Port of Long Beach, but also in the Port of LA. And they own the South Terminal in the Port of LA. That is Chinese companies. And of course, the president of World Sailing is Chinese. And I have the feeling, I don't want to put words in Julia's mouth, but I have the feeling like there's something going on there. Follow the dollar, follow the money. And I hope not, but I hope that U.S. Sailing and World Sailing and all of our viewers will continue to do everything possible to stop that, because the sailors have long since voted with their feet and otherwise that Long Beach, it's much, much better than the croutonic port and industrial area known as San Pedro, to say nothing of the federal prison there on Terminal Island. Last word, and then we'll move from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are pros and cons potentially to both venues. I mean, this decision's certainly out of our hands, and at some stage we, as U.S. Sailing and as the U.S. Sailing team, just have to know so that we can plan accordingly. We got a lot of activity going on in Long Beach this summer at the U.S. Sailing Center, right next to Alamitos Bay Yacht Club, and we have, I think it's 60 plus U.S. ODP and U.S. Sailing Team athletes going through camps and participating in the Long Beach OCR out there this summer. So, it's an important space for us. So we just like to know one way or another so that we can plan around it, because there's a lot of opportunity out there. It's a ravenous sailing community. It's a place where U.S. Sailing has had success, particularly 40 years ago when the Games was there. I was actually out in California this past weekend, sailing in those very waters, and we had a wonderful sea breeze on Friday. And hopefully it's a great venue. I mean, they're only 16 miles apart, but on the water, regardless of where they end up.
Indeed. Well, let's hope it ends up in Long Beach. It was a superb, I wasn't around in 1932, but it was a superb venue in 32 as well as in 84. And I was there as the technical director in your role as executive director, CEO of U.S. Sailing. And it was a fabulous event. And of course, we won a medal in each of the then 8 classes, all gold and silver, in fact. So I think we would be well supported by the yacht clubs. Nothing against LA Yacht Club, which is in San Pedro. But as you said, we got the support of Long Beach Yacht Club, Alamitos Bay Yacht Club. You got the U.S. Sailing Center already there in Alamitos Bay. It's just a much better setup. I'm not Pedro Foiling Sailor down in Australia says, ask Charlie who he would vote for. I think he said he just wants to know. He's less interested in taking a position at this point. Although I do think you could help by taking a strong position, Charlie, not you personally, but U.S. Sailing really ought to say, hey, come on, gang. And I don't know if there's money involved to you or to you, not you personally, but to U.S. Sailing, or if there's money involved for LA or LA 28, the organizing committee. We don't need to go into that unless you want to say anything more.
No, all I was going to say is that I'm going to be out there July 1st, before the Transpac race. And then post Transpac, I'll be flying back through Los Angeles to check out the OCR and I expect to know by then, certainly, where the Olympics are going to be held. And, as an organization, we can plan accordingly.
You said in the last little bit, you said USODP. That's the U.S. Olympic Development Program. That's the underpinning, getting younger sailors up to an Olympic imaginaire, to be thinking about, to be striving for making the U.S. sailing team. And then OCR, you've mentioned a couple times. That's not optical character recognition. That is the Olympic classes regattas, which are traditionally run in the year or 2 or 3 ahead of an Olympic event. We ran a very successful OCRs in Long Beach in 81, 2, and 3, leading up to the games in 84. And it's a key part of training race committees and letting sailors familiarize with the area. So you're running OCRs already there?
Yeah, there's an OCR that'll be taking place in July in Long Beach out of Alamitos Bay and out of the U.S. Sailing Center. There'll be a lot of ODP, Olympic Development Team athletes there. We're making great strides, certainly, in that space. We got to make sure that we continue to feed the pipeline. I think that there's some athletes right now that are, achieving success, kind of at the pinnacle of the Olympic pyramid, which is great, particularly for 28. But we got to make sure in August of 28, we don't look around and say, who's coming up next.
Yeah.
And, I think ODP's been doing a good job. I think Oak Cliff does a great job. They're running some high performance clinics this summer. You mentioned another or a couple of the other, yacht club foundations: Lauderdale, Annapolis, St. Francis, New York Yacht Club, High Performance Sailing Fund. I mean, there's a lot of people trying to feed that pipeline, and to the extent we as U.S. Sailing can kind of help corral those efforts and capitalize on some efficiencies, we're certainly looking to do that.
One of the Sangmeister brothers, Sangmeister, Jack, says everyone should contact Doug Arnault. They're in Long Beach, of course. Doug Arnault, A-R-N-O-T, at D-R-Not, D-A-R-N-O-T, at LA28.org, and give them a piece of our minds, collectively or otherwise. Arnault. Do you know this gentleman or a lady? I guess it's a gentleman.
I do not. I've talked to a couple different people, in Los Angeles, but most of it is, around the camps that are happening, this summer. It's also worth noting that the Sailing Foundation of New York has been very supportive, directly to athletes for some of those camps as well. So, we're feeling the love down there in the ODP space, and we could always use more support. So it's high on our list of priorities, certainly, to get that into like the well-oiled machine that it needs to be to help feed the beast for quads to come.
It's fun to watch those kinds of things grow, and that's what the excitement is about it, and then excitement for everybody else involved.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Let's move on to the Olympic team itself. As you know, our 2024 team at least medaled, and we had medaled since 2016. We took 2020 off, and then we did get a bronze medal in the 49er class in the persons of Hans Henken and Ian Barrows, those two gentlemen. So bravo Zulu to them for at least bringing the medal home. We were disappointed that Daniela Moros from our home club here didn't medal, and a couple of the others were in the hunt, or so we hoped, or so we thought. Thoughts on the upcoming games and who and where we might medal, or is it too early to talk about all that?
Yeah, I think that the first year of the quad presents an opportunity for new folks to get involved. I think you see a lot of the folks that had competed in the games taking a little bit of time to rest and reset and analyze kind of what the future looks like. I know Hans is pretty full on with the Sail GP stuff at this stage, but has also been doing some coaching in the FX. Ian, I think, is kind of trying to figure out what's next for him, but hopefully those guys are back on the water soon. I think we got 2 really competitive 49er teams at the Europeans that started today, in the form of Nevin Snow and Ian McDermott. And, Andrew Morales and Trevor as well. So I mean, we're doing well, certainly in the 49er, and we got Paris and Helena in the FX over there, and I believe Carson Crane and Lindsey Gimbel as well are sailing the NACRA over there right now, and we got these ODP camps starting in Long Beach. So ton of activity. Hoping Daniela's back out on the board soon. I think it's her intention to do the World Championship. But a lot of that certainly runs through, the Olympic program, Marcus, Rosie, and, Sally Barkow.
Excuse me. Are you keeping Marcus? You're not intending to let him go. He's around for the rest of this quad?
Yeah, Marcus is actually on his way to Bristol, Rhode Island right now. And I think it's his plan to be at the SailGP event over the weekend. Marcus is around. He's chatting to athletes and helping to figure out the plan here for not only this quad, but hopefully into the future as well.
Okay, let's Julie, you want to say?
Yeah, Gordon Smith comments that wouldn't it be a good idea for the U.S. to hold an annual Olympic class regatta for its sailors to join the circuit. And that's happened before.
Yeah, we basically do that, Charlie.
Yeah, that's happening this summer in Long Beach, and I think we'll every subsequent summer leading up to the games. I think it's interesting to point out that we'll definitely have some sort of kind of permanent infrastructure related to the games in LA, but then looking one quad further, that's also a good launching point for the next quad in the form of Brisbane as well. So, the West Coast is definitely of emphasis, I would say, with Olympic sailing over the next, number of years.
And as Jon Emmett says, we always had the Miami OCR, the Olympic Classes Regatta, which is still an ongoing thing. It's part of isn't that part of the World Sailing's new circuit?
I think Long Beach got added. Miami, I think, is no longer. You'd have to fact check me on that. But Miami remains a hub, certainly, of Olympic activity with the Sailing Center down there. And then, we're even seeing a lot of high performance foiling activity up in Pensacola, which is great as well, with kind of the foiling pathway or the foiling pipeline. There's a lot of alliterative P's I'm finding in the Olympic space, so it's tough to keep them all straight between podium, pinnacle, pathway, pipeline, you name it. But they're all well intentioned, and they're stocked with good athletes. We just got to make sure we can get them, the resource that they need to succeed.
Planning and preparation. You can see I just changed the slide. You having been a uni sailor, and we'll talk about university sailing, college sailing, as we call it in this country, and particularly team racing. We just had the New York Yacht Club resurrected. Susan Daly, bless her heart, another longtime friend, just resurrected the World Sailing. Team Racing Worlds took place at Harbor Court over the past weekend and 3 days before that. And one of the problems has been in this country is that college sailing, as you well know, having been a 3 or 4 year All-American? You were a big deal in college sailing for Brown, right?
I think big is, big in my weight. I think that was the biggest deal for me at 190 pounds in a collegiate dinghy, but I did have some collegiate success, yes. And I actually sailed the Team Race Worlds when they were in Perth, Australia, many moons ago with my wife as my crew. And it's funny, met a lot of, international folks that I've competed against, in the ocean race and offshore, and some of which I'll be seeing at SailGP this weekend. So, I think, college sailing has a lot to offer. It's not super technical in nature, but, you definitely get in your Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours. You learn about starting and tactics and positioning. And, now the way that these programs are structured, the athletes have access to a ton in terms of strength and conditioning and sports science and sports psych, career services. I mean, college sailing is not going anywhere. And, it's a great feeder.
You mean it's not going away? It's actually, is it on the uptick? Because some people say it's sliding a bit.
I don't know if I agree with that. I was at the Team Race Nationals at the Edgewood Yacht Club, followed closely, at the Fleet Race Nationals that were in St. Mary's just this weekend. that is our breeding ground. People can always decide not to do it and pursue Olympics straight out of the box, and that's a choice, and we support that. But to the extent they're members of the college sailing community and want to pursue high performance Olympic sailing after that, or any kind of sailing for that matter. I did college sailing and I ended up sailing, in the offshore space. So it's a community that we need to engage with, actively. It's a great future membership base. I mean, when you look at our membership demographic, it's a lot of folks who are, 50, 60, 70 years old and, junior sailors. And we need to try to keep the college sailors active in the sailing community after they graduate and before they, become older and buy boats themselves and feel like they need to be members of U.S. Sailing for this particular reason or that particular reason. But we need to find ways to keep them involved in one design classes, team racing, match racing. It'd be great to see PROs, judges, umpires kind of trend a little younger as well. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely a community. It's a target rich environment. It's people we know are interested in sailing. They're active and we need to keep them in the game as long as we can.
Andrew Pindar in the chat is, he's a super fozy. I don't know if you know Andrew from the UK. You may know him because he's been involved in the ocean race. He's a dear friend and a regular. He's saying, I had the pleasure of attending the preview of the Morning Light film. We haven't talked about your involvement in Morning Light at the Jane Pickens Theater, the theater in Newport in 2009, starring a young Charlie Enright and your partner in your team, 11th Hour Racing, Mark Towell, another Brown, what do you say, Brownite? What do you say?
I don't know.
Brown alum?
Brunonian, or I don't know.
Yeah.
And you and Mark were the stars. Roy Disney clearly believed in fly-on-the-wall format long before F1 did. That's what Pindar is saying. Up above that comment, you may see that Alistair Murray, past president emeritus, we call him, of Australian sailing, and a superb guy. And that country, as you know, goes from success to success, as normally does the UK in the Olympics. He's saying, good day, Tom, Julia Fosey, and Charlie. It's great to meet, quote unquote, Charlie. Sorry, I'm only checking in briefly as I'm traveling. We'll catch in full replay. But if you don't know Alistair Murray, I commend him to you, because that, and not every, like no one's everyone's got detractors except Julia. But Alistair Murray did, in my opinion, a superb job running Australian sailing before, during, and he's still quite heavily involved. It'd be worth your time to talk to him about what they have done right and wrong with Australian sailing. Especially
getting nationwide participation.
Yeah, and one of the things they've done, Charlie, which I keep talking about here because we get Nathan Outeridge's brother, Bo. Do you know Bo Outeridge?
Tangentially, yes.
You know who Nathan is, of course. Well, Nathan's brother, Bo, is embedded. He's a photographer, videographer, great sailor from up where Jody Shields is, up north of Sydney in Wanji. And he's a great videographer and a great sailor. And he goes to the major events with the Australian Olympic team, or whatever, the national sailing team, takes videos, takes photos, helps write or writes the press releases. And I get stuff from them, from Australian sailing, quico pronto. And not only that, but they put the names of the sailors under the photos. They include videos that are, you don't have to produce an epic. You don't have to produce Ben-Hur, an Academy Award, to get a video out to croutons like me for shows like this. But it really helps, in my opinion, with your sponsors, with their sponsors, and would help with your sponsors to get that kind of a media output regularly from the team, from somebody who is a real pro, not just somebody back in the office who gets fed stuff from the venue.
One of the things that tends to do is introduce us and everybody else to individuals and personalities and people, and that
the People magazine of sailing.
The People magazine of sailing, but that's what people grab onto.
Well, and I think it helps with sponsors.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's good feedback, and I think we're working on the marketing, messaging, media campaigns actively right now, and that's good feedback and something that we can hopefully work on here moving forward.
Steve Atkins, Commodore Atkins, Madison Beach Club, Summer Sailor Forbes Barber is on the winning team from Corinthian. Yeah, we're going to cover that. The Corinthian Yacht Club won the Team Race Worlds. I don't know how many Corinthian Yacht Clubs. I know of the one in Marblehead. There's one in Texas. There's one here in the San Francisco Bay and probably others. But the Corinthian Yacht Club in Marblehead won the Team Race Worlds over the weekend. We're going to cover that, Steve, Commodore Atkins, in a moment. There is Paul Callahan in the chat. Bravo Zulu to Paul. I didn't put it in the show, but we're going to talk with his son. He's got twin sons, both sailing for Harvard. And one of his kids has just been named College Sailor of the Year, which, as you know, Charlie, is a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. And I had the pleasure of meeting both Callahan boys when I was at the Team Racing Nationals at Brown just a couple weeks ago. Spent some time with Paul. And I believe College Sailor of the Year Justin has just recently been doing some 470 sailing.
Really?
With one of the U.S. Sailing ODP coaches down in Miami. So.
I'd be remiss in not mentioning that Stanford women won
Again? What, third year in a row?
National championship. Yeah.
You're not biased, are you, Julia?
Oh, yes, I am.
Charlie,
They won the co-ed as well.
They won
Yes.
women's and co-ed, right?
Yeah.
But what was it, an all-women's team that won the co-ed?
Yes.
Or just
Last year it was.
But was it again this year? Or was it a mix?
I don't know.
I think the A division skipper was a male, but I think Vanessa Larkamp, I think is her name. I think she won B division.
Cool. We'll cover that in due course. And Chris actually is saying, may we please ask Charlie how the morning light program has affected your career trajectory?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, massively. I'd done very little offshore sailing prior to that. It was an opportunity of a lifetime, one that, I wasn't sure I wanted to go for initially, but then was kind of talked into it by my college roommates. And in some ways, the rest is history. We were exposed to a lot of unbelievable coaching, one of which is Stan Honey, who's now on the board of U.S. Sailing. So I guess he's technically my boss.
Yeah.
Mike Sanderson, Jerry Kirby, Mikey Howard, and
Mikey Howard.
You know it, the man, the myth, great guy, and done a lot of sailing with all those guys. After the fact, but they were the ones that kind of, for better or worse, opened my eyes to the possibilities that exist in ocean racing and professional sailing. And I think specifically Moose and Stan were just coming off the back of a Volvo Ocean Race win with Avian Ambro, and that really kind of lit the fire within both Mark and myself, and that was our aspiration, and it was 10 years of our lives kind of pining for that trophy, which is pretty cool.
What is Mark Towell up to now? What's he doing? Are you guys, is he going to be involved in his 11th hour racing? I know Wendy fairly well, Wendy Schmidt also fairly well. Are they going to do another The Ocean Race?
I can't speak to whether or not 11th Hour is going to do it. I can tell you that, I'm firmly in this seat, kind of focused on U.S. sailing here moving forward. And Mark is in Hawaii, working on his new business venture, which is kind of tourism based. And, when I do the Transpac, I hope to kind of check it out firsthand. Mark and I still talk, a couple times a week. About what we got going on, obviously very strong partnership over the years and still remain sounding boards for each other, kind of in our new roles. It's nice to have someone, who you trust and whose opinion you value that you can kind of chat to about what we got going on, so it's decently similar in terms of size and scope and budget, with what we're doing over here at U.S. Sailing based on what we were doing in our last campaign. So, it's cool. Mark's a great resource.
Okay, let's go on to what happened this weekend in San Francisco, the so-called Casa Vela Cup.
Mm-mm.
And it was won by the perennial French match racing champion, Pauline Courtois. She ran away with it. There's not too strong a description. But what about match racing? Are you doing any match racing? Have you done much match racing? Do you know James Pleasance from the tour? If not, by the way, we've already, Alistair Murray is back in the comments saying, by all means, put Charlie in touch with me. And I'm happy to chat, help, whatever I can. But if you don't know James Pleasance from the UK, who's the
World Match
the ringleader,
Yeah.
he's the maestro of the World Match Racing Tour and a great guy.
Yeah, I know James, and I kind of cut my teeth doing some match racing stuff straight out of college on my own, and I also did a lot of sailing with Taylor Canfield.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
On display
Right.
here at Carver this weekend with the USA Sail GP team.
Get those guys going, would you?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're bringing some new folks on. They're getting more time in the boat. I think it's been a while, obviously, since anybody sailed. I think it's been 40 some odd days or something since San Francisco, with the unfortunate cancellation of Rio, but obviously the right thing to have done with safety in mind. But I tune in all the time. I think it's extremely exciting. It's cool to kind of know not only all the people on the U.S. team, but a lot of people throughout the fleet. I've never seen it in real life, so I'm going to go with my son and check out kind of the bases on Friday, and then be out on the water Saturday. The weather doesn't look perfect, but hopefully the rain holds off, and we get a little breeze. But
it might have a little rain, but I had a forecast that will run here later in the show, and it looked pretty awful until the last 24 hours. Now it looks like 12 to 15 both days with a bit of rain.
That'd be good.
I think whenever it's like that, in this part of the world, I think the forecasts are pretty volatile and ever changing. So whenever there's rain involved, you'll never know until kind of the last minute. But hopefully it's a good show. I mean, what they've done with that product is nothing short of amazing. And
now gambling.
Yeah, exactly. DraftKings. You can bet. You can put your money where your mouth is. So that'll be cool for sure. I mean, we always kind of talk about it, who's going to do well at this event or that event, and kind of what the external factors are. And now it's we got some Vegas odds.
Well, that'll help us because we always ask the Fozy on this Friday in the Friday show. We'll say, who do you think's going to win? And Julia usually picks the winner, and the rest of us are casting about.
The least qualified.
She's got about the best record of anybody on here. I've got one more question for you, but before we go to the last question, Charlie, anything else you want to say? And then we'll let you go.
I mean, the big thing for me is, I'm coming into this thing eyes wide open. It's an amazing opportunity for me personally, and I don't take it lightly. Still kind of in the investigation phase, if you will, but I'm really having fun with it. I'm excited about it. Totally new skill sets for me. A lot of them, but I've kind of jumped in with 2 feet, and there's a lot of work to do, but I've felt very supported, which is great. I haven't tried to do anything controversial yet, so maybe the talk is cheap, but no, we'll see. I mean, but it's a great opportunity, and I'm happy where I am, and just appreciate all the support. And to the extent we could garner more here moving forward, that's great too.
Well, one thing, go ahead, Julie.
I was going to say, I think everybody's just delighted that you're here. So.
That is the understatement of the week, Julia.
Yes, indeed.
Me included. But I just wanted to ask you this question because my successor was Robbie Haynes. He had won the gold medal in the sailing class in '84 in Long Beach. I went from doing U.S. sailing for 5 or 6 years over then to America 2, New York Yacht Club, and got involved in the America's Cup full time. Long story short, by the way, there's Claire Harrington saying, Charlie is a star. And I want to thank Vice Commodore Harrington, who put the bug in your ear about coming on the show, because Julia, I don't know if you know this, Claire and Charlie had the dinner with World Sailing, that gang, a week or so ago.
Yeah.
And she put the bug in Charlie's ear. And for the first time, I've actually got a call from a guest. I didn't have to pursue Charlie. He called and said, hey, you want me to come on the show? So thanks, Claire Harrington, for that.
Yes.
Charlie, I was saying my successor, Robbie Haynes, and I was on the selection committee along with some others that helped get him. He would have been terrific, I think, but he didn't last very long. He and Amy, who I knew well by then and known well since, they got to Newport and said, "Man, it's cold here," and I think I'm better sailing a boat than a desk. And he lasted, I don't know, a year, maybe not even that long, and went back to SoCal and North Sails and did his thing. Are you going to last there more than a year?
Well, a couple things. I know Robbie and Amy very well from the Morning Light days, and Roy Disney continued to be Roy P. Disney continued to be a supporter of ours throughout our around the world campaigns. You know, for starters, I've lived in Rhode Island my whole life, so the weather is not a shock. In fact, I like the changing seasons. But when I showed up, my first executive decision was to get a new grill, a new barbecue grill. And the woman that was purchasing the grill, she said, I know times are tough, but can we get a grill? It's only $250. And I said, you can't get a good grill for $250. If you spend $250 on a grill, we'll be having the same conversation in 2 years. And she said, you think you're going to be here in 2 years? Which I thought was pretty cool. She got promoted straight away because I like the nature of her questioning. But yeah, I'm happy where I am. And, one of the reasons I took this on is because it's a challenge. There's a lot of work to do to kind of, in some ways, restore the reputation of the organization. And I think my track record shows that I love a challenge. So let's get into it and get on with it. And I'm still going to do plenty of sailing. I was sailing this weekend in Long Beach with Don Wilson and company on their Gunboat 68 in preparation for the Transpac. I'll be out in the Great Lakes sailing 52s this summer. I think kind of those were pre-existing commitments on my schedule. I think next year will probably look a little bit different, but if I don't sail 30 to 50 days a year, I'm not going to be the type of person you want to hang out with in an office anyway. So
absolutely correct. Bravo, Zulu.
Right.
Yeah. And the comments are flowing in. You got
Be
Steve
sure to
Atkin.
read them.
Yes, Julia likes to say.
Yeah. Be sure to read the comments afterwards. And you'll just love them. And you think you may have heard them or seen them, but you won't. You'll have a whole different experience.
Well, and Charlie, we don't close the comments. We're one of the few podcasts, video or otherwise, that leaves the comments open because we get so few trolls. Now maybe that you're on here, we'll get some idiots that will come on, but not likely. So we leave the comments open. So even if you wait a few days and then read the comments, I think you'll find some of them helpful and instructive. Jonathan Frank, outstanding, leading from the water. Yeah. Gordon Smith asking again. Okay, I'll ask. Go on, Tom. What musical instrument does Charlie play?
Air guitar. Nothing. I'm not very musical inclined. I like music. I listen to a lot of music. I can be caught singing while I'm sailing, but I am by no means.
Who's your favorite band or artist?
No clue. I went to a Lake Street Dive concert last week.
Okay, well, we'll get Claire Harrington to work on. Did you know that Vice Commodore Harrington was the head of the music department at St. George's?
I did know that. Yeah.
She is a
talented pianist.
She is a cool talent, and she's an airline pilot and more. Okay, Gordon, I asked for it for you. Lots of questions. I'm not going to ask you about pizza in New Haven versus Providence. Bannero's asking about that. Jody, you ping Charlie direct. I'm sure you can find him and ask about success in the Olympic team. Steve Atkins is saying, Charlie, my buddy Lincoln White wanted me to say he couldn't respond in person because he's standing a watch on the delivery to Annapolis with the Coast Guard. So
there you go.
I guess you'll know what that means. Lincoln White. Tom Pace, who you must know is a past Commodore of Pensacola Yacht Club and a superb guy, regular on here. Look forward to any next trip you make to Pensacola, Charlie. We have an A1R, American One Racing coaching camp in October. We'll grill up whatever suits. That's from Tom Pace. And lots more here.
Yeah, but, feel good.
Maybe, and Luca Rizzotti from Italy, who you must know is the head of the foiling, those events and the whole foiling initiative. He's a star in his own right. Nice to have him on. Ralphie Steitz is on. He's saying, nice job. Josh Tozo, who we know well. Josh, who used to work there at U.S. Sailing and is a good friend. Just tuning in. We'll watch back to see the full show. But hi, Charlie. Really looking forward to working with you and the team at U.S. Sailing. He, of course, as you know, is with Ziek now. Ziek! I like this. And
Matt Belcher, the CEO, was in the building.
Zyke!
Yeah, there you go. So it was great hanging out with those guys.
Rob Fry down in Auckland, New Zealand is saying when you're in New York this weekend for Sail GP, say hi to Leonard, his son Leo Takahashi, who is also a FOSI. Yeah. Leo's been on this show a bunch of times, and we know Rob Fry and that family well. And I'll let Alan Long's comment wrap this up for us. I don't know if it's gone off the.
I like the next, Don Riley's reply.
Okay, it's gone. Maybe it's gone off the chat. But
yeah.
Alan Long says, so it appears Charlie is way more. So it appears Charlie is way more than a non-sailing CEO. Thank God. That's my editorialization. Thank God.
Mm-hmm.
And additionally, a participating, read, hands-on CEO, more so than the last guy. This is good news. Alan Long, I'll up you one. I'll raise you one on that and say, it's great news. What did Dawn say?
Killing it, Charlie.
Killing it. Charlie,
Great.
final word to you, and then we'll let you go.
No, I think I said my shtick. I got soccer tryouts here for my son in about 35 minutes. So, one of the other benefits of this job is that, it is here just 15 minutes from my house, and I get to spend a little bit more time with my family, which is important. My kids are getting into junior sailing, and, it's been cool kind of dragging them around the world, but now they got brains and school and friends and commitments and sports. And, it's great to kind of be part of that. So, thank you guys and gals for having me. Really appreciate it, and won't be a stranger. And good luck with the rest of the show.
Call anytime.
Yeah, indeed.
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Live from the U.S. Sailing Headquarters in Bristol, Rhode Island, the new CEO, Charlie Enright. Thank you, Charlie.
Take care.
Ciao.
Right.
Ciao for now. Julia, that was a special treat, was it not?
It was. It was.
And speaking of special treats, we got another half an hour or so to go here, but let's go to the Jon Emmett regular reportage. John's been watching in the chat. And we have Jon Emmett's Coaching Corner, our super fuzzy John from Great Britain, reporting from the family farm today. If the video will roll.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fosy. Welcome to Jon Emmett's Coaching Corner. By now, I'm sure we all know the drill. You need to like, share, comment, and if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. From the background, you can probably tell I'm back at the farm, and this is me standing in front of the granary. It's a bit of a sob story, but actually the worst is past. The building is sealed, structurally reinforced with steel, so nothing can get any worse. And perhaps there's a little bit of a life lesson there for all of us. But I've just got back from I think it's called the Benelux Cup. So that's Belgium and Holland. So I was very pleased to win both events, and you put the scores together. And of course, that means that it encourages people to do both events. And back in the day, we actually used to have a Channel Cup, which was the English and French nationals combined. So that's another top tip for encouraging participation. I mean, the Dutch event, they had to limit the numbers because of the size of the venue. And I think World Sailing did an amazing job to get the Para Worlds in there, because it's much smaller than I thought. And actually, I think you would have 200 Ilkas entered if we were allowed, but I just don't know where we would go. Certainly for me, launching a recovery was not the most difficult part of the day, but it certainly caused me some anxiety. I'm used to, crikey, I don't know, 100 metres worth of concrete slipway at the academy. Maybe I exaggerate slightly, rather than sort of dropping a boat off a pontoon, but I guess I got better. And yeah, that was something which the Dutch were very good at. And in a perfect world, you just leave your boat there and then you literally just push it off and you never have to take it more than a few feet. But as I say, I think traveling, it's really important. For those people who've been watching my shorts, my reels, I've tried to do the bite-sized chunks about the things I notice in the day-to-day, whether there's difference between a huge current and waves in Ostend or flat water, very shifty, power on, power off, a Brazelmere. So you can probably tell what's going on by what I'm talking about, because those are the things which I think probably the most important. I've also recently tried to put in a little bit of my sense of humour, so I don't know whether Tom located the flying Jon Emmett at the end of prize giving. I certainly learnt this time to take my shoes off, but I didn't remember to bring a pair of trousers, but that's another. I mean, yeah, perhaps all those days back as a teenager where I was doing that early morning swimming paid some advantage, but it's still not that nice to be thrown in the water. My top tip, and I didn't put this on my reel, is you want to make sure you go in bum first, because in all seriousness, the guy who won the Scud Worlds in Sydney, he used to be an Olympic sailor who got thrown in, and he had a life-changing injury because of that. So do be careful. But the thing that strikes me about these events is just how many volunteers there are, how many are needed, and how they all make a difference. Many hands, as I always say, make light work of things. But how do we get volunteers? Well, the first thing is, once you get volunteers, I think it's far easier to keep them than it is to get them in the first place, just like sponsorship or anything else like that. And I think the key thing is it's got to be enjoyable for the volunteers. So it's the simple things we do, as we say thank you when we finish the race, or tell them what we enjoyed and thank them for their time. And obviously, you know, the people who get to do the speech at prize giving, you know, you have a real important job there. Because without the volunteers, you have no events. And I think that's something we really need to look to the future, because in a lot of the sailing clubs, the population is getting older. So that does mean that we have more volunteers, but maybe in a way less physically able. And I think as the sport becomes more dynamic, and I've talked a little bit about looking at wind foiling, winging, and these things which are so much more accessible now than they used to be, the sport is definitely moving on. And one of the barriers is probably the safety aspect. I mean, in Belgium, it was a little bit of a worrying time. Well, it started off as a very small worry because I couldn't find my gear bag that had my anti-inflammatories and my water and my jacket in. And then I realised that it was something far more serious, and actually they momentarily lost somebody who'd had a big capsize, and we had one trolley still on the slipway, and the rib that went to go and locate them unfortunately did locate them, and they went to hospital and all was well, but the rib that went to locate them was the one I give my bag to. So I was very glad I didn't have my car keys in that bag, just as I was very glad I didn't have my car keys in my pocket when I got chucked in the water in Holland. But I'm going to leave it there. Once again, a big shout out to those volunteers, such an important thing. And I better get a move on, because I think Lily's booked some shopping in Weymouth, and I'm still here at Imhorn Farm trying to look after the family business. So sail fast, sail safe, keep having fun, and I will do my best to join you on the show.
Hey, did you coordinate with Jon about volunteers and keeping volunteers happy? And
yeah, but I didn't say one thing which he reminds me of, is that most people volunteer because they're asked.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And the broad thing, you'll be welcome when you come.
Yeah,
is fine. But when I say to you, Tom, would you join me in doing so and so? We have a lot of fun.
I'd run fast the other way.
Depends
I'd
on
run
who
fast
asks.
the other way.
Depends on who asks.
No, I'm sure you're right. And I'm not sure Charlie appreciated what I was saying about the meetings twice a year and how important they were, because that's actually where you got volunteers.
Yeah.
You had these meetings and everybody showed up. And, you know, people who were senior serious sailors and people who were just low-key recreational sailors who happened to be in the area, or the meeting happened to be in their area, so they wandered into the meeting. Didn't cost anything to attend, and you could belly up to the bar with whomever.
Yeah.
And and that's how you got volunteers, big picture, long term, because somebody, as I said, would speak up at a meeting, put them on the committee.
Yeah.
I hope they get that again. I hope Clark Chapin helps push them. Baton Rouge is saying, I only sail at YCs where you can leave your keys in the car. I'm glad he didn't lose his. Jon Emmett, his regular reportage.
Yeah.
He did look young in that. He was shaved and haircut, and I think
Lily's back in town.
Lily, you think?
Is she?
I don't know. I think he just had great success over there in the Low Countries. And Jonathan Frank's agreeing with you. Asking to volunteer opens doors to increased participation.
Yeah.
Great guests. We've got 3 great guests in a row. Not only Charlie, but then this Friday we've got Chip Merlin. And then next Tuesday, you know who we have?
No.
Luca Devoti.
Oh, fun.
And he's kind of the For those of you here in this country, if you watch basketball, you watch the NBA and that famously good show, which is moving from TNT to ESPN, the pre and post game show and halftime show called Inside the NBA. We almost named this show Inside Sailing.
Mm-hmm.
We almost named it that, but we didn't. I'm glad we didn't. But Charles Barkley, who was on that show, who has hugely, shall we say, he has a big ego and big opinions.
Yeah.
And sometimes hugely controversial.
Yeah.
I think Luca Devoti may be the Charles Barkley of our sport. He's going to have some I had a long talk with him the other day. I said, don't just tell me, come on the show and tell everybody else.
Yeah.
And he's going to.
That's great.
This was a great guest. I'm glad we had Charlie on
yes.
today. And we're to Bravo Zulu. Well done in praise of performance is this segment. And we've got two. One from the New York Yacht Club's esteemed and fabulously beautiful Harbor Court in Newport, Rhode Island, where they hosted this past week and weekend the 2025 Team Racing World Championship. They resuscitated this. This had been in abeyance for the better part of 10, maybe 11 years. Mm-hmm. And the leadership there, and Susan Daly took it. We have known Susan for 40 years, and she is a Stalwart New York member, but also a great organizer. She was the chair for this and ran a good event by all accounts. And it was breezy. As we told you on Friday, we're getting reports of how breezy and bumpy it was. Now that's in the harbor. That is the windmill. It's a home just to the east of New York Yacht Club and Ida Lewis Yacht Club there on the South Shore. And Corinthian Yacht Club, as we've said already, put on a top-notch performance to win the 2025 Team Racing World Championship in Newport last weekend. After 4 exhausting days of intense combat, Corinthian Yacht Club, that is the Corinthian Yacht Club in Marblehead, Mass., prevailed, finishing with 20 points. The highly polished team from Marblehead led the charge from day one, only losing 5 races of the 25 races they sailed throughout the competition. Bravo Zulu to them and their skipper who's holding the trophy. That's Will Bailey. I don't know the names of the others. I looked, other than the person on the left, Julia.
Right.
You know who that is.
Indeed.
Our
Looking
super Fozy Claire Harrington, the Vice Commodore of New York, and she was there as the club's representative and host. I looked all over for names of the crew, and I'm sure they were someplace, but I couldn't find them. Mm-hmm. And I wish PR people, I mean, this is the People magazine, and we try to put names with faces. We try to celebrate sailors, but I wish the hell they would give us, those of us in the media, now that I'm part of the Fourth Estate, and put a little thing that says, that's Claire Harrington, and yada, 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 Will. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. The World Match Racing Tour does that darn well. Robert Deeves in the UK, who covers the Finn class and the 5.5 and a few others. James Pleasance for the World Match Racing Tour. Please, high five to that photo caption, Clark. Mm-hmm. Luca Devoti, the Charles Barkley of sailing. Oh, yeah, I won't probably put that in the caption. But we do need to see names, please. Enough of a rant. The second place team, there's Claire with the Kiwi Racing Team. I couldn't see that they were associated with a particular yacht club. Their skipper, Reuben Corbett, whom I don't know, but I do know the third from the left from the Governor's Cup, and he's a real character. No, Gordon Smith, they're not from the Yada family, yada, yada, yada. But these names I managed to find because this team put on the Live Sail Die website the names, and they're not in order of this photo, but Reuben Corbett, Jordan Stevenson, whom I do know well, fourth from the left, counting Claire. George Angus, who I also know from Gov Cup, Maeve White, Mason Mulcahy, Louise Schneider, or is it Louise? I think it's Louise Schneider, Oliver Lloyd, and Zoe Dawson. Bravo Zulu to them. They were runners-up strong. And team racing is not necessarily a big deal in New Zealand, so I thought that was pretty interesting, Julia, that they had a good result. Here is that team sailing during, I just found this photo, Kiwi Team Racing. I like that. They have their own logo. They're really into this. They did good PR for their home media in New Zealand. And they also managed to break a rig.
Oh.
This is probably not so funny to New York Yacht Club.
No.
And the others, those are the
They're club boats,
the
yeah.
sonars, the club boats there. But the team did have a good time. And there's Jordan Stevenson on the right. Apparently, they really enjoyed the lobster dinner that Claire and Co. that the New York Yacht Club put on under the tent at Harbor Court. There is no finer, and I'm sure there are some of equal hospitality. St. Francis does a pretty good job with regattas. The Royal Ocean Racing Club is a superb host, and many others. But the New York Yacht Club, when you get invited to do an event at Harbor Court,
Yeah.
it's special and it's fun. Just look at the face of. Again, I know Jordan there on the right from the Gov Cup, and he's a hoot. The Newport Harbor Yacht Club was there racing. Not your club, not our clubs, Julia. They were 6th overall, so not and that's a big team racing club, so I was surprised maybe they didn't do so well in the breeze and bump because that's a light air venue down there in Newport Beach for the most part. Corinthian Yacht Club, as you know, 1, Kiwi Racing 2nd, Baltimore Sailing Club in Ireland. Bravo Zulu to them were 3rd. West Kirby, now they do a lot of team racing at West Kirby in Great Britain. New York Yacht Club 5th, Newport Harbor 6th. The Italian team, I don't know who they were, what they were, or Team Bahamas or Team Argentina. And then the Bermuda Sailing Association in Bermuda was 10th. Good they sailed, sent a team. Gamla Stans, who's a famously cool yacht club in Sweden. And the Hellas Club in Greece.
What a great array of clubs.
And again, Bravo Zulu to New York for getting that event back on the world calendar.
Yes.
And hopefully that'll bring some more team racing. New York's been a big supporter of team racing. You know why? Because the club members, it involves younger club members into the scene. And since what's the big, they want named after one of the past Commodores, Claire or somebody will put it in the chat. But they started a team racing event quite some time ago that's become now the National Team Racing Championship really here in the U.S. And, of course, it's big in college sailing here, too. We have team racing in high school in New Zealand. Rob Fry say, I did not know that. That's pretty interesting. Claire Harrington says, so noted, we'll do it. All team members were introduced at the awards, but they should be listed in the PR. Yeah, and Claire, if possible.
Hinman Cup.
The Hinman Cup, that's it. Well done.
That was from Claire. And Rick Brenner.
Yeah, well done, guys. Thank you. The FOSI are so smart.
They are.
Yeah, and it's really important to put names to faces. Speaking of whom, I can't put the names of the faces here, but this is Team Match in Pink. What a name for a match racing team. That's Pauline Courtois' team that were victorious here this past weekend in San Francisco. And I don't know if those names are in the right order. I'm pretty sure they're not because I think Pauline is on the right. Pauline Courtois, Malin Lemaitre, how do you say that in French?
Lemaitre.
Lemaitre?
Yeah.
Louise Acker and Lorraine Metro on her team there, who raced this weekend. They barely lost a race. They were very strong. Lost one race in the finals to our local hero, Nicole Brie. Oh, and this is how close the racing was, and there was plenty of breeze. Not so much on the last day, but the PR, the press release from James Pleasance and his gang, French match racing skipper Pauline Courtois and her match in pink from France, from Normandy, claimed a decisive victory Sunday at the 2025 Casa Vela Cup held in the iconic, Julia, they're stealing your phrase, in the, do that again so I can put your camera 3 on. The iconically beautiful and reliably windy San Francisco Bay, they didn't say all that, and hosted by St. Francis Yacht Club. Courtois and crew defeated Nicole Briot, our local hero, and the Vela Racing Team 3-1 in the final. Sweden's team wing, skippered by Anna Östling, who's another perennial top-notch skipper in this on this circuit in women's match racing, finished in third after winning both races in the first to 2 points petit finale against Julia Aertsen in Team Out of the Box from the Netherlands. What a team name that is. So there are the 3 podium finishers, the winning 3 teams. Bravo Zulu to them. Nice trophy, nice event. Well hosted by St. Francis, Pauline, Nicole, Anna, Julia, the top 4. Then Allie Bletcher, who's a well-known, and we saw Martha Parker. Martha's coming on the show, Julia.
Oh, good.
See, she was crowing in that event. I saw her over there when I went over for lunch the other day. Lindsay Bobb And I never did catch up with James. I tried to meet with James. I went over there and he was on the water, and then I had to come back here, and then he came in off the water. Where are you? Why don't we?
Yeah.
And then I couldn't get over there Sunday to meet up with him before he left to go to Annapolis, which is where the next event on the tour takes place.
Yeah, I really like
This
him.
coming weekend. James Pleasance, Katie Cornetta, Kenza Coutard, Caroline Bafus, also from the States, and Liz.
Bayless.
Oh, it is Bayless. Thank you, Julia. Liz Bayless. You know Liz Bayless well. Why does it say Caroline? Liz
That's
Bayless
spelled that
and
way.
Liz, I don't know how do you pronounce Hjorth from the U.S.
Fourth.
You think?
I think so.
Okay, well, that's the wrap up, and the next event will also be in J22s. That's what they have here at St. Francis Yacht Club. The Women's World Match Racing Tour moves straight to Annapolis next weekend, well, later this week, in a back-to-back event scheduled with the Eastport Yacht Club hosting the Santa Maria Cup, which has been going on for years, now part of the tour, the second stage of the 2025 Women's World Tour. 8 teams will compete for the Annapolis event in the same J22 type yachts or boats.
We look forward to that.
Julia,
Yes.
what happened on this day in history? Just a quickie here. In 1539.
Golly.
You want
I
to,
can't remember. I wasn't to that birthday party.
you were not around then.
No.
There's
Get
your
the-
first clue.
Oh, look at that.
Spanish,
Yeah.
Florida. On this day, it is said that Hernando de Soto's expedition landed in Florida.
Oh, well, okay.
Commissioned by the Spanish crown to conquer Florida, Hernando de Soto and his expedition of 10 ships, I had no idea it was this big an entourage, 10 ships and 700 men landed on the coast of Florida in 1539. He was then one of the wealthiest and most successful of the Spanish conquistadors, having worked as a slave trader in Panama and the West Indies and as Francisco Pizarro's second in command during the conquest of Peru. That guy got around.
Oh,
You talk
that's-
about Jon Emmett getting around.
All right.
So the Spanish conquistador Hernando de Soto claims Florida for Spain. Blake Middleton got that.
Mhm.
He knew. I think Blake goes on and researches these things. Now for extra credit, Julia,
Yes.
which coast, where in Florida? Which coast?
Well, one would think on the West Coast, but
Why would you think the West Coast?
well, because that's probably where you travel. But I'd go someplace safe. You'd go inside.
East Coast or West? You say West Coast. You are correct, madame. He landed somewhere, they think, between St. Pete, between Tampa and present-day Charlotte Harbor, which is near Fort Myers, which is where there's a U.S. Sailing Center and some other things in that area. Great
Yeah.
sailing area. I like the west side of Florida. I like it. So that's where it is there.
Mhm.
And Julia,
Sir?
speaking of Tampa, I'll remind again, in case you didn't see it or hear it earlier in the show.
Oh, yeah.
This Friday, our guest is from Tampa. He's got law offices all over the country, but this esteemed lawyer, sailor, super sailor, Chip Merlin, who bought the Bill E-68,
Yeah.
known as Merlin. They originally named Merlin, and then Bill bought it back after 4 or 5 or 6 owners, and it's back here now on the West Coast. It's going to sail Transpac. They just sailed the SoCal 300, and he, Chip Merlin, will be our guest with some ideas on how to improve our beloved sport
Yeah. He's a terrific guy, too.
on this Friday's show.
Yeah.
And he's young. He's only, I think, 60, 65 maybe. He's young, Julia.
He is. Too young for me.
America's Cup.
Yeah.
You'll be pleased to know that there's not much, well, maybe you'll be pleased to know, maybe you won't be so pleased to know, there's not a lot going on. There is, however, one here's. I couldn't get anything out of Claire Harrington. She is lips are sealed. Come on, Commodore, tell me. No, can't tell you a thing.
Yep.
I can't confirm or deny a damn thing. So I heard from one of the other teams that a new protocol has been issued. Russell Green has been the legal advisor for Team New Zealand. Apparently has been hard at work with Mr. Dalton, and a new draft protocol has been circulated. I do not know if the Crutonicism that existed in the previous one still does. How much of the Crutonicism? Apparently there's still some heavy negotiation going on. But this business that Sailing Anarchy talked about, opined on last week, that I have used, that humans need not apply. The quote from the first draft, or one of the first, the draft that was leaked to me: manual power input will not be permitted except in steering, and the AC-75 class rule will allow power equivalent to that generated by 4 cyclors to be supplied to control sail functions with a supplied battery-powered system, is a quote from what had been the extant draft of the protocol. So the cup will be all electric. Any recognition that fitness, strength, and skill are fundamental aspects of yacht racing has now been dumped. Humans need not apply. And that was from anarchist David last week, writing on Sailing Anarchy, the website. And I could not agree more. It still gives me, it makes me furious, Julia.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why I get so excited about this. I only spent, better part of 50 years of my life in the cup, and it just drives me crazy.
Yep.
Huh?
Yep.
I mean, gone from manual power only.
And one design.
Well, I don't care about one design as much. You can argue about various aspects, but the idea that the boats could be radio controlled from the yacht club bar, no humans on them at all. That's where this is headed. It seems like, it feels like. I hope not. Ridiculous. Now,
Well,
there is. Go ahead.
I'm just looking at them, thinking of the philosophy celebration.
I mean, yeah, ridiculous. You like that graphic, you mean?
Yeah.
This graphic. It's fabulous. Huh?
Yep.
I finally got to use the telestrator, Julia. No, I can't forget to clear it now.
Mm-hmm.
There is one team that's in action. That is Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, and they actually issued a video that's pretty nice. I thought we'd run it.
Good.
Morning, everyone. Morning, everyone. So, just a quick speech. Tomorrow we're gonna go out sailing for the first time in this new campaign. Make sure we are all focused on what we are doing. I think in the next couple of weeks, by the end of May, we will know the shape of the next America's Cup. I think we all see we want to try to work in this new campaign in a more structured way. It's going to take time. It's going to make some people unhappy at the beginning, but we believe, I believe, is a way to go. We need to raise up the level which is being used in the past. The name of the team is going to be Luna Rossa, as a Luna Rossa team. Tutto chiaro? Grazie. Ciao.
Ora è tanto bellissimo, adrenalina molto alta, si riparte, quindi la felicità è dalle stelle.
Umore sempre alto, al massimo. Aspettiamo che il vento entri e per fare un'altra giornata di sailing perfetto.
Pronti lo saremo, dai. Iniziamo adesso, quindi la voglia crescere.
Nuova campagna, nuova energia, nuove forze, si rinizia, si riparte. Ripartiamo.
Zealand are one of the most trophy 3 times in a row. For the very first time, Luna Rossa win the Pooch Women's America's Cup.
Really quick, obviously Naples is out, so the next cup is going to be in Naples. Obviously, it's positive the fact we're going to race in Italy, and I think it's an opportunity for us. We will be a bit more under pressure because we will have the whole nation. I can tell you, when we raced in 2012, and luckily we won the event there, I never saw so many people. I felt like I was one of the most famous soccer players in my life, just to understand the feeling. So it will be 1,000 more than 10 years ago. So it's going to be huge. I want to make sure the team is focused on what we're doing. So leave everything outside. Please keep going, stay focused on what we have to do, and the team, like always, will organize your life to try to be in the best position as possible. Any question? Perfetto.
Il rendezvous con nave Vespucci potrebbe essere intorno alle 15 al largo di Cagliari.
It really is a fabulous video. The Amerigo Vespucci there in the background. They're going to close the tent up and call it a day. But Max Serena, who's the leader, I've done a couple campaigns with him. I know Max well. And what is this now? His 3rd or 4th America's Cup for Mr. Patrizio Bertelli leading the campaign there. Marco Mercuriali, who is their rules advisor, whom I also know well, had a cameo appearance there. Rob Fry said he thought he saw, and I know he's moving to the team, right? Josh Jr. Did you notice? I didn't notice him, Rob Fry. Did you? Notice Josh Jr. from New Zealand, who was a stalwart down there and a Finn sailor and part of the Team New Zealand and so on. So at least one team is up and running. We hope that Naples doesn't have a volcanic problem in the meantime. But as I said, please don't send me any more videos or pictures or articles, because I've got the esteemed Lance Burke here in the Bay, a scientist here in the Bay Area, covering that for us and keeping an eye on it. So we'll see what happens. Clark Chabin saying, at the risk of repeating myself, I don't think that this is the apex of sailing, but a pointy corner off to the side, maybe. Rob Fry, let's face it, the AC-40s are all electric powered, and that racing was good. Well, Rob, wasn't that good? But I will also say, Julia, that again, I said it on this show the day after, or a couple days after, that they named Naples as the venue. And I must say, those 2 regattas that that you saw in the video that was referred to by the team leader,
right?
Those were big events. And somebody said in the chat, several of you, does that give Team Italy, does it give Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli a big advantage?
Absolutely.
I think so too.
And I think if anybody deserves to win,
you are so pro Italy and pro Spain.
Never mind, but nobody's tried as hard.
How about the Americans?
No.
You want the Italians to win the next one?
Well, they've really earned it.
Okay. Well, Jay, you just like Patrizio Bertelli, the fact that this is his 7th challenge.
Yes, I do.
Yes, JJ was in the video, Josh Jr. And Junior's not like my junior. It's actually his last name, Josh Jr. Okay, well, it is I think going to be an epic event if they can pull it off. If it happens, it will be sad if there's only 2 or 3 teams there, but we shall see if this new protocol is better than the Crutonic one that came out originally. But let's don't dwell on the Cup. Let's remind ourselves, or I'm going to remind you what my never so humble opinion is, that this is the worst trustee in the history of the America's Cup, having delegated to Grant Dalton all of their duties, responsibilities, and authorities. The worst trustee in America's Cup history. A great yacht club, great people, perfect venue, beautiful town, but a lousy trustee of the Cup. Fabulous guest of Sailing Illustrated.
Yes.
Thanks again, Charlie. We're going to spend a lot of time in Italy, I think, just because the more you know about it, home team advantage. Yeah, Jonathan Frank agrees with you. Margarita Marshall. Now, there's an interesting comment. I also had another.
That's interesting.
I had another one here's from Margarita Marshall this morning, which I'm not going to repeat because she asked me not to, but there are other Italian teams in the making, she says.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would be interesting. This might be Italian. And we'll see if Mr. Dalton lets other teams in to the Challenger Selection Series. It's not his Challenger Selection Series, by the way. It's the Challenger Records Selection Series. We'll see if they're. But the 52 Super Series, this is not in Italia. It's actually up in Spain. Started yesterday. The Galicia 52 Super Series Royale Cup is underway. They had some racing today. Breezy, beautiful Bayona up in northern Spain finds favor again with the TP52 teams. This was a release from last night on the eve of the Galicia 52 Super Series Royal Cup. Nice picture of Platoon from last year, I guess. Second at the first regatta that was in Saint-Tropez last month. But Takashi Okura's sled team yesterday in the practice racing that was, laid down a marker on the beautiful waters of Bayona in northwestern Spain as the top performance over the 2 official practice races sailed yesterday on the eve of the Galicia event.
Whoever got next is fine with us. Line up. I said whoever got next is fine with us. Go and line them up. That's fine with us. Go and line them up. Fine with us. Fine with us. Line up. I said go and line up. It's fine with us. I said go and line up. Whoever got next is fine with us. Line up. I said whoever got next is fine with us.
Now I say 11
Absolutely.
teams, 9 nations. Great. Was it? Yeah, 11 teams, 9 nations. Right. Great stuff. And we'll be watching that event, as I'm sure many of you will as well. It will be carrying on up there through the weekend. Melgus is H4, Harry IV, is sailing for the first time, helming, I should say, for the first time, with Harry Melgus IV on the helm for the first time this season. American Magic Quantum were always in the top 3 yesterday in the practice racing, or 3 or 4 at the mark roundings, and led the second short single upwind downwind practice race.
Great.
So H4 said, we sailed really well in Saint-Tropez, where it was unfortunate, that we did not get many races in. We are really confident with our boat speed and are learning a lot every day. So he's on the helm, H4, Harry Melgus IV, and we'll see how he does in this regatta with American Magic Quantum Racing.
That'd be great.
Harry Melgus IV for that team. Here are the season standings after that Saint-Tropez event. Gladiator Sled and American Magic Quantum Racing, the top 3. And on down the list with all 13 teams. They're not all there, but it's a good series. And as a couple of you have said, oh, thank goodness it's not drones. What was the comment?
Yeah.
Drone racing, radio-controlled RC drone racing. Yeah, Margarita Marshall's back and forth with Ed Worley. Ed's observing that the protocols, in the draft at least, suggested limits of 1 AC team per country. And Margarita Marshall says, well, Grant Dalton needs some more teams, but I guarantee you that the Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli folks are not going to want more than one team from Italy, Julia. They're going to want to own that marketplace. Right. They're not going to want any other teams in there. So they'll be saying to Mr. Dalton, who should not be making these decisions, the Challenge of Record should be making these decisions, and it should be really wide open.
Yes.
You should, any number of non-Kiwi teams, teams from non-Kiwi countries should be able to challenge for the cup.
Yes.
H4 will do great, Blake Middleton is saying. He's up there in Scout country, of course. He would say that. Ben Nichols. Hello, Ben. You've had several comments. I haven't read one from you yet. Replying, no previously winners hosted. What's that? No, previously winners hosted. Now that they tarted around the place begging for money, a billionaire sport has been cheapened. The pinnacle has been erased. Pistol Pete saw the writing on the wall. Interesting, Ben, that you would say all that. And we'll carry on here. I've got another report, this one from Greece. As you heard, Charlie mentioned that the 49er and the FX and the NACRA 17 Europeans. Okay, we're 2 hours into the show, Julia, and I'm starting to talk like a crouton, more croutonic than usual. But this is a cool event going on in Greece. It's the Europeans. They got a big turnout. It runs today through the 8th, through the weekend, the NACRA, the 49er, and the FX Europeans. And this is the first championship leg, the class says, leading to LA 2028, so a big deal. A new chapter begins for the fast. They call these three classes, which are run by one group, the fast double-handed classes. The champions from Paris 2024, meaning Marseille, have mostly either retired or are taking breaks, as Jon Emmett said in one of his comments, for various reasons, leaving the start of the new quadrennial to a group of sailors who either missed selection or missed medals and are looking to move up in the standings. Nice turnout of teams, fully 54 49ers, 30 FXs, 27 NACRAs, 111 teams, 222 total athletes in Greece this rest of this week from a bunch of countries, as you can see down there. Most teams per country. You see who's leading the chart? Yes. Not Europe, not Great Britain, not one of the other European continental teams. Australia, 12 teams, one ahead of France with 11, Italy 9, and that sailing power, the Netherlands, with 8. And no, I'm not making fun. I mean that sincerely about the Netherlands. What a great team they are. A great sailing country.
Absolutely.
We have a video. Here it is.
Okay.
You can run on for a long time, run on for a long time, run on for a long time. Sooner or later, God cut you down. Sooner or later, God cut you down. Don't tell that long-time liar. Don't tell that midnight rider. Tell the rambler and the gambler and the backbiter. Tell him the God's gonna call him down. Tell him the God's gonna call him down.
We're really looking forward to next week. We had some good practice races already. We had some good training.
I don't think we feel so much extra pressure having the current European title. I think it's going to be a long week, so we're just excited to start and get racing.
Right now, the opening ceremony will take place.
Fabulous sport.
Yeah.
Where have we been today? Greece, Spain, Italy, Newport, Bristol, San Francisco, Australia, Auckland. We've been all over the place. And that's not just the FOSI. That's the events we're covering.
Right.
What a fabulous sport.
Yes.
Yacht racing.
Illustrated.
Well, maybe we thought about that too. Yacht racing news,
Views.
and notables, right?
Yep.
Including and especially Charlie. It was great to have. Sail GP this weekend in New York City. Here's their teaser video. A lot of people going to the Mubadala, not Mubadala, Mubadala New York Sail Grand Prix this weekend, the 7th and the 8th. We'll preview it more on Friday. Governor's Island.
I love that.
In not a great place to sail, there at the confluence of the Hudson and East Rivers. But at least it looks like the weather forecast is better, Julia, than we'd seen 24 hours ago. And we'll keep you posted on that. High speed, high stakes. Sail GP enters sports betting. And it's just starting as we speak for this weekend's event, and we'll be carrying on so you can put your money where your mouth is, as a couple of you said. Julie, you going to place a bet?
Nope.
On your favorite Spanish team? You love those guys from Spain.
I do love them, but I don't want to. I'm not a big bettor.
Did you ever have a Latino boyfriend? You seem to like these Latin gentlemen. First it was the Anglos, the Aussies, the Kiwis, and the Brits. Now you've taken a...
I grew up with Latin gentlemen.
Up in Carpinteria.
Right.
Down on the farm.
Down on the farm.
In the ranch. I think Julia's harboring a youthful, I won't say fetish, a youthful attraction to Latino gentlemen.
Why not?
Latin gentlemen, not just Latino. I mean, to Italians as well.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, Julia. Okay, enough of all that.
Tall, dark, and handsome.
Tall, dark, and handsome. I'm not going to read all this. You can see it on their website, but they are opening up. This was the big news today, that this weekend's Sail GP has entered the sports betting marketplace globally. And you can place your bets through across a range of operators, including DraftKings here in the U.S. and Bet365 in internationally available territories. That's from, I guess, Australia, that shot, but that was one that they sent out in the release. Use it, and you know who the top dogs are. Tommy Slingsby and Dylan Fletcher, and of course, your favorite, Julia, Diego Bottin.
Yes.
And the top 5 going into this weekend, also including 4th place Peter Burling with his Kiwi team, and Giles Scott, the Brit sailing for Canada.
They're all really close, though.
Yeah, they are, especially after the problems that Tom Slingsby had here in San Francisco with his rig coming apart.
Oh, yeah. Falling
down. Go, Julia, go, Blake Middleton. $100, Ted Ryman says that GBR wins in New York. Dogzilla Monster, a.k.a. Stingray up in Seattle. France could win if it's light. Okay, Sports betting in professional sailing. What could go wrong? Well, we'll see. Probably nothing. The forecast, as we said, is better. It looks a lot better than it did 24 hours ago, as you can see on Saturday at 5 p.m., 2 to 5. I can't remember what the race time is, but it's in the afternoon, obviously. It's looking like 12 to 13 miles per hour. So, call it 10, 11, 12 knots, gusting 16, a little bit of rain maybe on Saturday, but Sunday it's looking okay. In the afternoon, Sunday, 14 and 15, gusting 17, and some sun, or so it looks like, on Sunday in New York. New York, New York.
A wonderful place.
A wonderful town or place? How does that song go? Thank you to Rick Bannerow for supplying us with that slide just before Rick told me this morning, he said, it's going to be terrible light. I said, is it? Are you sure? Check it out. And then he sent me this slide and said, you're right, it's not going to be so bad. It has changed in the last 24 hours, so that's good. The last leg to Gloucester, I got one more video. We're 2 hours and 13 minutes into this show, but I really want to play this video because it's a good one here on the last leg. And I like to calm the show down at the end, calm ourselves down. And here is, speaking of Italy, another video from Italy, from the southern tip down there where we showed you where the Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli team, their base is in Cagliari there. But this next video is from, how do you pronounce this? Villasimius, Villasemius over here, a little to the east of Cagliari on the coast in what looks like a beautiful sailing area. And that's where today's last leg video comes from, right there in Villasemius. Enjoy.
We are here in Villasemius. This is the second year of the Sardinia Challenge, including the Optimist, so the Kinder Joy of Moving event. And it's an amazing event, a 3 day of action.
Everything starts from here. The goal we have with these kids is to give them experiences that assist them in their growth, and not only in sailing, but for their life.
The Kinder Committee always chooses amazing spots to carry out the regattas, and so it's really beautiful. You definitely explore new places that you've never seen before and that you've maybe only seen on the internet and pictures. You also meet a ton of new people. I've met around 4 or 5 people just in the past couple of days by just staying here.
Kinder regattas are nice because they improve the skills of all the sailors. In the start, there are a lot of people, and it's hard to manage the upwinds and the downwind.
I really like the sea in this place because it's one of the best seas we have in Italy, and the wind conditions here are always the best. One of the best parts of these regattas is that you have a lot of experiences, like how we met Giancarlo. That was really interesting because he spoke about his races and his experiences. And I love the freeing of the turtle because it's a unique thing you can do in a regatta.
So for me, what it was really important was always believe in my dream, and if sometimes happen something's wrong, never stop and never give up, because also in the crash we can learn a lot and switch and transform one not really nice experience in something that can give you the opportunity to be better tomorrow.
I'm very happy of this results because we trained a lot of time on Genova, and I'm so happy because it's a fantastic result.
Hi, we are in Villasemius for the Coppa Italia Grand Prix as part of the Sardinia Challenge. Unfortunately, the wind didn't help, but we had so much fun with all the wing foiler guys. We talked about wing and sailing stuff, and we had really fun.
Grande mia! Sempre più grande mia! Carlo italiano!
Grazie a tutti, è stato un piacere avervi ospiti questo fine settimana. Speriamo il prossimo evento ci sia anche a Meveo, di ritorno con noi, il nostro nuovo direttore, e porteremo avanti tutte le iniziative per far bella Villasemius una volta.
A couple of those kids sounded like they were native English or Americans even.
Yeah.
An amazing video. Icarus Sports, I think they do the best videos in our sport. I don't know the ladies and gentlemen involved, but bravo Zulu to them. Bravo Zulu to this Sardinian Challenge, which is in its second or third year. And it's not just the Opties, But again, if you don't think there are going to be a lot of people watching the America's Cup in 2, 3, 4 years' time, whenever it happens, God forbid there's any problem in Naples in the meantime. But what a fabulous turnout they're going to have, Julia.
They are.
Huh?
Yes.
And I just thought it was nice to wrap up similar to what we saw with the Luna Rossa Praterprelli video, just around the corner from them in southern Sardinia, one of my favorite places. That is Sardinia in general.
Yeah.
In the world. Done a lot of regattas there, judging meetings and so on.
Neat.
Cool stuff.
Yeah.
Which finally brings us to the D block, Julia, and the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. These are all unattributed today. That's the word I was looking for.
Uh-huh.
I told you, F the flowers. I wanted a new sailboat. And then the kid says, Dad, I don't like sailboats as much as you do. Am I adopted? Not yet. We can't find anyone that wants you.
Oh,
poor kid. And then finally, Julia, there's this one. I don't know why they got mad. All I said was, okay, obviously somebody's photoshopped this in, but in order to be a sailor, your boat needs to leave the dock. I mean, you go to San Diego, not to pick on San Diego, but for example, and you go and look at those marinas inside Harbor Island, or inside
Marina del
Sheller
Rey.
Island, or it's not to say nothing about Marina del Rey, or even up here, but there are a lot of boats that never leave the dock.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because why? They're vacation homes. The couple goes down there to their boat on the weekend, puts a shrimp on the Barbie and has a glass.
Mm-hmm.
Or what else? Shall I say it? They're fornicatoriums for some guy who's got his boat down there, and rather than renting an apartment, he's It's true.
Oh.
That's why I thought this was funny, and that's why it is not attributed to anybody. And yeah, Clark Chapin and others saying how cool the drone coverage is for our sport, and what a fabulous, fabulous sport it is, especially when you see the president of that Opti class said, not only do we teach them, does the Opti and this regatta and these kinds of things teach the kid, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but not only do we teach them something about sailing, but they learn about life.
Indeed, they do.
What a nice sentiment.
Yes.
Sentiment.
I believe that's really true.
I think it is true. I don't know. I'm not sure I learned anything about life from sailing, but who knows? Who knows, Julia? And you like to say, here now that we're at the finish line.
Yes. Please like, follow, and share, especially maybe for kids this time too.
Well, we've been all over the world, not only with the comments from those in the chat, but with our videos today. And as we say, comments are welcome too, even in replay. And that's why we encourage Charlie to go back and look at the comments, not just today after the show, but in a couple, 3 days
But
from now.
you too, also, anybody, you'd be surprised how much you miss.
And how much, gets put on the comment after the show is over. Not as much as live. That's why we love to do live. That's why we're going to start up doing live, Julia, our word of the day, fornicatorians. No, fornicatorium, Baton Rouge, IU. Thank you to everybody who supports us via patreon.com or otherwise, patreon.com/join/sailing illustrated. Thanks for your support. And we got another coffee. I don't know if you see it here behind me, but Jamie Hutchison sent us another bag of this high-test coffee, Julia.
Oh, good.
Called Death Wish Coffee.
Oh, I hope that's.
Do you want some of that up in the Commodore suite?
Sure, if I don't have to read it.
Well, you don't have to read it, but no, it's. But here, you take that off. I've got one here at the Beach Street Yacht Club in my apartment. So go have a look at a taste test of that.
Okay.
And while we're at it, thanking everybody who give us audio, video, and images for today's show, this long group. And Julia, while you're looking at your coffee, you can hold it up, give another shot.
Oh, yes.
Thanks, Jamie Hutchison, for that. You got to give it over to your camera, not to your monitor. There you go.
Yeah.
Julia, any final thoughts?
No, I enjoyed today's show. There's and looking at the breadth of people we get to meet.
Indeed. 2 hours and 23 minutes into the show. And at this point, we will say that our guest on Friday, don't miss Friday's show. We'll preview SailGP, but also we will have Chip Merlin with us on show number 840 on Friday, the 6th of June, this Friday. And Chip is a famously cool sailor as well as a leading lawyer, media personality, at least in this country, super sailor, and the owner of Merlin.
Which is a fabled boat.
Fabled boat, a sled, a ULDV here on the West Coast. And he's got some ideas on how to improve our beloved sport. And in the meantime, we hope you have a great rest of your week. And if you can go sailing, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.